Hello and welcome to 21st Century. I'm Daljit Dhaliwal. For decades, it was a lucrative business and a beloved pastime throughout the Gulf region, camel racing. But for too long, children were on the front line of the races, their small size helping the camels run faster and win big. We bring you the story of the fight to save these children, and we travel to Qatar to see how one country and one man found a very creative way to save this treasured sport. It's race day in the Persian Gulf state of Qatar. In the quiet hours of the early morning, these beloved camels, once known as ships of the desert, are led by their trainers and brought to the starting gate, all under the watchful eyes of their owners. But there's something unusual here. There are no jockeys, but that wasn't always the case. As seen in this 1998 film, the saddles were once filled with people. Not adult jockeys, though, but young children. Their tiny bodies light on the camel's back, gripping the reins and driving their mounts ahead with the whip. It was a dangerous ride and a journey many children never expected to make. It's a journey this young man knows well. He calls himself Russell, and his story actually began thousands of miles away from the Gulf, here in old Dhaka, Bangladesh. Russell was just 7 years old when two men snatched him from a railway station in the old city.
They took me to a hotel, fed me, cleaned me up, and then they took me away.
Russell, now 19, says that he was taken all the way to Qatar's neighbouring country, Dubai, by a couple posing as his parents. He was sold to a camel owner for the equivalent of some $350. Scared and alone, Russell was dropped off at a farm. There he saw many children, some as young as 6 years old, riding camels. He had no idea that he too was about to become a child jockey.
That very first night, they woke me up at 3 a.m. I was new to this work. I fell several times. We suffered a lot. But we had to learn.
Had to learn quickly, or he would pay the consequences, he says.
We had to ride 20 to 25 camels in a single day. I could not properly sit on the camel, and when the owner saw this, he gave me an electric shock with a big rod.
Russell was just one of thousands of young boys stolen from countries as varied as Sudan, India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, and sold to camel owners throughout the Gulf. Sellers included a network of traffickers and sometimes even the children's parents, who got a cut of the monies the boys would earn. In some cases, the boys sent back more than a quarter of what their parents could earn in 1 year. Camel racing was first introduced in Qatar by the Emir in the early 1970s as a way to rekindle interest in the animal once the centre of Bedouin culture, but now no longer considered useful in such a modern society.
People didn't care anymore for the camels. They were left loose in the streets.
المواصلات الحديثة.
Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim bin Faisal Al Thani, head of the nation's camel racing committee, said all that changed as the sport became increasingly popular and successful.
People became interested in camel racing. They started to take care of the camels again, and camel prices went up.
Race-winning camels began to fetch millions of dollars on the market, and the cash prizes were staggering, as much as $350,000. That drove some owners to do anything they could to win, even if it meant using children as jockeys. Lighter in weight, children made it easier for the camels to run faster. But child jockeys like Russell were constantly being injured, many thrown off or trampled. While he and so many others were enduring this ordeal, back in Bangladesh, Russell's mother, the only parent he knew, died without ever knowing what had happened to her son. But his relatives, especially his aunt, never gave up searching for him.
We went to different places looking for him, but we could not find him anywhere.
Meanwhile, stories about the abuse of child jockeys began to emerge from the Gulf region and raised an outcry from human rights groups and the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF. Rima Salah is a deputy executive director at UNICEF.
They lose their childhood, they are working like adults, and they have no access to services, to health services, and particularly to education.
These groups demanded a total ban on the use of children in camel racing throughout the region. And in 2005, the Qatari government stopped the practice. In the years that followed, some 2,000 child jockeys, including Russell, were repatriated to their home countries. But the question remained, could camel racing, now a sport loved throughout the region, find a way to continue? One man was about to come up with a very innovative answer to that question.
I originally had the idea, why not use a robot instead of endangering children?
Rashid Ali Ibrahim is one of Qatar's leading scientists and a prolific inventor with more than 50 inventions under his belt. But he found that turning his idea of creating robotic jockeys into a reality presented quite a challenge. No one had ever undertaken such a project. Undeterred, he set out visiting camel farms to learn what could work.
Camel owners wanted a robot to look like a child because camels are used to children.
But his first prototype, as seen in this clip, proved too heavy, and owners complained about the sophisticated computer system required to operate the robot. They wanted something smaller and much more simple. Inspired by the challenge, Rashid developed a second prototype, then a third. This one a dramatically refined and much lighter model.
The first one weighed 23 kilograms. Now, this one weighs 3 kilos, a difference of 20 kilos.
In this design, a battery-powered electric drill is fitted into a sturdy metal frame, serving as the heart of the robot. The drill spins, controlling a thin whip attached to the robot. This contraption is then placed on the camel's back and operated by remote control. Driving alongside the race, the owner pushes the control button, transmitting a signal to the robot's whip. Another method to transmit commands, walkie-talkies. One unit sits in the robot's pocket and the other is carried by the owner during the race. The sound of the owner's voice triggers the whip again, commanding it to spin, hitting the camel, encouraging it to run faster. The robots are so successful that just like the child jockeys they replaced, they even have their own riding outfits.
We have clothes to dress the robots. The owners put their own logo and use their own special colors for the races.
The price tag for each robot, $250 to $350 US. A small price to pay for saving children's lives, says Rashid.
It was a big victory for us. We protected the lives of children who were exposed to severe dangers in camel racing sport.
Today, countries throughout the Gulf are now using his design. And back in Qatar, his work is front and center at the country's annual international races. It's the crowning event of the camel racing season and is sponsored by the Emir himself, who awards a golden sword to the victor. Beneath massive floodlights, racing camels assemble early for the morning session. They're dressed for the occasion with robots in tow. Most wait for the race to begin, while others squeeze in one last circuit around the track. Some of these camel trainers are former child jockeys who chose to stay on and work. Their experience now a valuable commodity. But this time, the decision to work is a destiny they created for themselves. But for Russell, finding his destiny once he returned to Bangladesh took perseverance and a stroke of luck. Back at home, at 15 years old, he had little hope until his aunt, who had been looking for him all these years, made an incredible chance discovery 6 months after his arrival. Something that happened while she was watching the news one night and saw a report about child jockeys.
We saw him on the television, and that's how we knew he was trafficked. He had been missing for 8 years.
Russell now lives in Old Dhaka, where he is employed as a machinist. While he is glad to be reunited with his relatives, he still remembers the animals that he grew up with in Dubai and had come to love over the years.
At first, I missed the camels. But it's good that now robots are doing the work. Now I think I have a better life here.